I'm replacing the front left side, driver side sway bar link or drop link. I've removed the wheel, as you can see. This is what the replacement part looks like. It's kind of an L-shaped thing, so you've got a piece here with a bolt at right angles to the actual link itself, and then another piece here. What I found on mine, we'll see when we pull it off, is that these universal joints here seem to have worn, or rather the rubber boot is cracked and is letting dirt and things in, and I'm getting a rattling from the front end, so it seems that this should actually fix it. And what I've observed is that if I hold the wheel at the 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock position, so that would be if the wheel were actually on the car, if I held it here and here and move it, I get movement. And taking a look at what's actually moving, it seems to be the sway bar drop link. So what does it look like on the car itself? Well, you can see it right here. So there's one part of it down there. There is a nut behind and another nut that you have to hold while you're unscrewing it, and then on the other side you'll see there's a similar arrangement. There's another nut up there. Now I've sprayed the nuts with some penetrating oil, actually CLP, brake free, in the hopes that that will help remove them. I've been careful not to spray the rest of the brake assembly, obviously, with any kind of lubricant. Not too difficult to do because it's quite far away. Now, I also have a 16mm, I don't know if you can see that, a 16mm socket, and I attached this to a breaker bar, which was low profile enough to actually get behind here, because you'll actually see there's not really a lot of space. If I put this socket on, there isn't a huge amount of space when it's actually tightened up. I'm going to loosen the nut with the breaker bar. It's already loose, but imagine that it wasn't, so loosen it with the breaker bar. Then what you'll see, or you'll find, is that the other nut right here will actually rotate. So I used an adjustable wrench, maybe the only time you'll use an adjustable wrench on a car, just to hold this particular nut in place while I was unscrewing this nut, and I was unscrewing this nut with my 16mm ratchet. And once you do all that, you can pull this nut off. Now also note, I've turned the wheel fully to the right to give me access. Let's come to the other side. So I've turned the wheel full left, so now we can actually see the other side of the assembly, and actually put the camera light on. So hopefully you can see that there's the nut that we're trying to remove here, and again I'll have to use the adjustable wrench to hold this piece over there. So I'll use the breaker bar first to actually loosen it. Now another point is that on this side, rather than it being a 16mm, it is actually a 19 or 18, let me see, 18mm. So here I have an 18mm, that's a perfect fit, so I'll get it started with this. I've now straightened the wheels so that I have access to this nut, but I can also hold the nut over here on this side to actually get it out. So the nut that I'm actually removing is this one, but it's just going to turn endlessly if I don't hold this one. So you can see what I'm doing. I've got the adjustable wrench over here on this side, just holding the nut in place, and what that lets me do is to use the socket to remove, and it's now finger loose, so I can actually remove this one without the entire assembly rotating. Okay, that's now off. The assembly already came out of the bottom hole, and now I can just pull it free. This is the old one right here. You know, you can see that this is actually, the boot is torn. What happens when the boot is torn? Well, it means that stuff can get into this universal joint, which deteriorates the mechanism. So now that these are actually off, I can actually measure these nuts properly. So let's see, we started with this end here, the short end, this one right at the end here. This is a 16. The one back here that I was holding with the adjustable wrench is actually a 17. This one out here at the end, this one's the 18. Right here at the end is the 18. And then in here, that I was again holding with the adjustable wrench, is a 17. And I verified that the same wrench or nut sizes are the case for this new replacement part. And this replacement part is Lemfurder, so it's not a Porsche branded part, but it is an OEM supplier, and the part number, Porsche part number is right here, and I believe that's the same for a 996 as well as a 986. So let's put the new part back in. I'll show you that procedure as well, but you can see this is where the long piece is going to go, and then down at the bottom there is where the short bolt will go, attaching to the sway bar itself. So I'm going to insert the long end first. And I'm going to just finger tighten the nut. I need both hands to do this. And I'm going to adjust the universal joint here so that it can actually fit in, and then finger tighten this side as well. So I finger tightened the two nuts in this diagram, that is nut M12 and nut M10. Now I'm actually going to torque them up to the right values. So the long one, which is nut M12, needs to be tightened to 63 foot-pounds, and the other one to 34 foot-pounds. So this might be a useful tip. So when you're actually tightening these, it is really important to use a wrench and maybe even get a helper to hold a wrench and to hold this nut really tight. Because what happens if you don't? Well, as you start to turn, that boot is going to catch and is going to tear. And then all of your good work of replacing this is basically down the drain, because the universal joint is going to get contaminated. For this side, I ended up using this extension so that I could clear the brake rotor to torque up the bolt, and I had somebody actually hold the wrench on this side, and you can actually get it in there and hold it parallel to the bar and just grab it in your fist, and that way it won't move, but it's pretty hard if it's just one person trying to do it. The one down here is actually a lot easier to torque up, and I torqued it to the right value. So that's now on, torqued up to the right values, ready to receive the wheel, and hopefully that will fix the knocking sound.